Welcome back to the Sonoma County Library's book repair video series. This is part 2 of complex gluing involving cracked hinges and other nonsense. So we're going to see how our fixes yesterday came out. And so the first book that we did was where we were putting it together. So this came out nice, and so we were going to then repair the next phases. So the back here is going to need some gutter gluing and some attaching here. This first part is going to need to have this attached. We did this already, so this is nice and attached now. And there's no other issues. So what we would do on this is where we do layering. I'm going to pull all these apart. So these all go together. And so we're going to layer each one in individually. So we're going to get our glue and so this is the next step. That's the one thing about gluing, is it requires a couple days worth of work as you let each repair dry. So this one we're just going to place glue along that edge. It's about 1/16 of an inch. You want to make sure you get it good on the edge there. You're going to take your first page and you're going to lay that one down, making sure you line it up with the text block. And on and on. Okay, and on this one, I'm going to add a little extra glue along here to seal the deal. Okay, and this is the most important one to line up. Okay, and then once I get this last page down, I'm going to just put a layer right in the gutter there. And then this is where I'm going to use a sheet of wax mending paper, not quite all the way inside. So I want it to do a seal. And I'm going to use my bone folder to really get it good and sealed in there. Once I have it good and sealed and I've got everything lined up, I'm also going to run my bone folder on the outside of the book here. I'm going to work it so it's nice and lined up. And then we're going to put rubber bands around it. And then I'll put a weight on it. And now we're going to show you how to attach a group of pages to the text block. So right here on this book, we have all of these pages are single and loose. The right-hand side of the page is the recto, and the recto pages are always odd numbers. The verso side is always the even numbers. So when we're consolidating the text block, we're always working from the back to the front of the book. So in this case, I went ahead and already consolidated the chunks that were still together, and I've already glued those in. So now we're going to want to add each loose page singly. So in order to do that, we want to, I'm going to move this out of the way until we're ready for it. Okay, so we're going to want to lay down our piece of waste paper, and we're going to be placing the glue on the spine edge. This is the spine edge. This is the fore edge. So we're going to be placing our glue on the spine edge. So we're going to want to be able to peel off, because we're going to line them up, peel off the next page in sequence here. So that means that you're going to take your pages, and I'm going to show you with 5 pages. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to do all at once. So now what we want to do is we want to line these up with the lowest number first. So that one's going to go, and then we're going to keep layering, and we're going to leave about 3/16 of an inch showing. And we're going to keep layering 1/16 of an inch. Sometimes it's hard when you're working with the same color pages. You always just line it up, find it. And we're going to take our flat brush, and we're just going to slather glue all along those edges. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a waste sheet, and I'm going to put this 1/16 of an inch from there. So as you can see, I've got a piece of waste paper. I've got all my sheets lined up. And now I'm just going to spread glue all along the sheets. And I work quickly. You don't need much glue, but you need to make sure there's glue on every page. So then I'm going to take my book, I'm going to take my waste paper away, waste sheet, and then I'm going to start lining up my pages. Okay. So I want to line them up to the text block. And with my bone folder, which is somewhere over here, I'm just gonna making sure they're straight, lined up. I'm gonna take the next one, and I'm gonna layer that one in, lining it up with the text block using my bone folder. This one kind of got away, so I'm going to work it in. So on this one, I'm going to lift it up and work it in this way. Okay, I'm going to take my next one, and I'm going to line my next one in with the text block. Oh, and it's probably hard for you to see that. So I'm going to get it in there so you can see. Sometimes I use my finger. Take my next one. Line this one in here. It's almost kind of like tipping in pages, except you're lining them up with the text block. So make that, smooth them all down. And last but not least, now you're good if you've got the page numbers, but if you don't have the page numbers, then what I usually do is I mark them with pencil so that I can erase them. So once you got these good and in there, you're gonna put your waxed mending sheet, place it as close to the spine as you can. I'm gonna run my bone folder over, and then I'm gonna put a weight on it and let it dry. Then I'll do the next set of sheets. Okay, that is how you do a group of sheets. This one had coming apart in the middle of the book, so we had gone in and sealed it on this side. So I'm going to take out my, okay, so that's nice and sealed. That was a loose page. So now what we would do is we would put glue. We're going to put glue, and let me see if I have, yeah, that's a good brush. We're going to get glue down in there, all along wherever there was glue previously. Make sure you guys can see that. Always making sure not to get it on the page next to it, except for on the corner. So, working carefully. Getting it good and down in those crevices. Add a little more glue. Got to be careful with how much glue you use, and this is just takes time to know how much glue it's going to take to. Okay. Put a little extra at this end. Okay, now we're going to fit the two pieces together. And this just involves working it. And as you can see, I'm working it into here, from here. I want to make sure it gets in there good. And I also want to make sure I squeeze it in case there's any glue that needs to come out. So again, this one's in there nice and good. We're going to put rubber bands around it, put a weight on it, and come back to it. We had taken the page off and reattached it, and then we had put some glue in the middle where it was cracking, and oh, it has one more crack. So we're going to want to put right here a little more glue, because this held together very well, this part. So we're going to put a little strip of glue in here. We're going to again close it up, let it dry, and then on this part I think we're going to need to put the clear hinge tape. But I would assess first, because these are pictures and we wouldn't want to necessarily ruin them. Then we can do the same thing with this repair here now that we've got the major one here. So again, using my spatula, I'll want to separate my pages. And peel off I'm just actually going to put these down and use some glue, but I do need to get off these little ragged bits here, so I will pull those off. And then we're going to glue this whole section in here. And so that would be your next fix. You would put it together, and when the entire book is dry, then you're going to assess whether it needs any hinge tape. But otherwise, it's in good shape. It doesn't need any gutter gluing, except maybe I would put some right down here. And I have, one of the things that works great are bamboo skewers, because they're pointed. You have to be careful. A lot of times I'll snip off the tips. But they're great for being able to get into really hard places with your glue. So that's how we would repair that. This book here, we had glued it here in the back. We wanted to glue this first before we did the part where it's simple gluing. And I did note that on this one, you're going to need to get a little glue on this edge down here besides on the super. And again, when you pull this back, you're going to want to glue this part. And then when you put it all together, it's going to and so this part is now fixed. So that is still part 2 of complex gluing. And we also have in complex gluing the one that we just showed you, where we fixed all of these sheets that were coming out, each individually. So now that those are all glued in place, you can now, again, same thing. It's just a matter of simple gluing. Get your glue up here and underneath, flip your side over, and then all the pages are attached. The other thing I wanted to mention is earlier, I could not remember what this style of paging is, where it's not cut flat. This is called deckled edging. So that is a very, very old school style of binding books with a deckled edge. Yes, we had one more in complex gluing. And that is where we needed to pull this together because it had come apart. And it's now nice and fixed. And then the last thing to do in this book, as I described, was to get a little bit of glue down in the gutter here and just a little bit along here so it adheres together. The other thing that you may note from the first video is there are sections in the book where, yeah, there you go, where there's like a page or two kind of getting ready to come out. In that case, we want to make sure we get glue down. And again, the technique is where you can't see any of the dark part, which means that you've gotten the glue so good that it'll stick all these pages together. And so with this book, you just want to go throughout and repair any of these little areas. Just a little bit of glue. You don't need much. Okay, and that is complex gluing, cracked hinges, and other nonsense.